Guys, make sure you hit the follow or subscribe button on whatever platform you're either watching or listening to us on. And if you've been enjoying the episodes and you've been getting something out of them, please go leave us a 5-star review. You have no idea how much it helps us.
For me, I had this mindset, not even like purposely like it's going to work, but like I just wouldn't have been able to sleep at night if it didn't work kind of thing. So I was willing to find any way to make it work. And I'm still like that, like we're nowhere near where we want to be. I'd say just do it wholeheartedly. If you're having doubts about it already, then probably question if this is the correct domain for you to go into.
Gabe, welcome to the podcast.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Carl.
I've been following your content for a while now.
Yep.
The boys at Strength Culture, I think I was talking to them before they had you on, and they were talking about you, and then some of your stuff started to pop up at the same time. Mm-hmm. And mate, like I think you do a really good job, like and to the point where, like you know, I'm paying attention from a business standpoint. You know what I mean? Like that's what I like to do. I like to like look at something and go, oh, I wonder what's working there. You know, like and what can I take from that and so on. But we're going to obviously dive into that stuff at some point, but I'd love to hear the startup story. So, how was 9 to 5 started and what was the story behind, the starting point there?
Yeah, I've told this story like a million times, probably on my own podcast, but it was definitely came from humble beginnings. So I'll start with like the full context of it. Basically, I went to school with Louis in like year 6 to year 9. Weren't overly that close. Then I went to a different school, probably didn't chat for 3 years. And then after year 12 finished, we started playing like futsal together with a bunch of mates. After that, Louis and I would go down to the outdoor gym and we would just like train together, doing like muscle ups, pull ups, everything like that. And it kind of sparked a real interest for both of us wanting to better ourselves physically. And literally we would be equally as committed. Like it just like expanded upon like going to the gym, like finding out which different supplements work, and I kind of got obsessed with the research and the literature behind it and understanding what I could optimize in it. Like it was a kind of a healthy obsession because I was like, oh, what can I be doing better? Constantly researching. I kind of came from like a very academic background, so I took the same perspective with that. That kind of grew into like all my other mates, like that my mates could see the progress I was making. They were like, oh, Gab, can you write me a workout program? Like, does this work? Does this work? I was on exchange at the time and like everyone kept asking for it. And I was like, I could probably help a whole lot more people if I formalize this a little bit, like perhaps turn it into a business. And, Louis and I would literally train together every day. So this was like 6 months of us being apart, which was very unusual. And I texted him like it was September 2019 or August 2019. Literally, we texted each other at the same time. He was like, I want to start an apparel brand for gym. And I was like, dude, I want to like start making programs. And so we kept hypothesizing, or rather establishing this idea. And basically when I got back, like we registered the business on the first day, probably a bit silly, but like from there we had skin in the game and we just had no idea what we were doing, but like we just wanted to do something. I remember literally being in like Sri Lanka in a little tuk-tuk or something with my laptop writing up the business plan or something like that. I'm pretty sure I called it like Anabolic something rather, just like a placeholder name. But I just like got all my ideas out, just like spat it out, and I knew from there like I wanted to make it happen. I remember chewing people's ear off, like girls I was seeing at the time being like, this and this idea, and they probably had this guy's going nowhere. And like it's pretty cool, like it actually ended up kind of being successful. So like that's where it started from, and it just basically came from Louis and I wanting to help people because we thought as like uni students there was nothing really relatable out there. It was all like kind of off-putting bro science and big roided boys like this, and I don't know, for like your average like Monash University student that wasn't necessarily appealing. So I wanted to try and create something that was a bit more, breaking down the science and making it a bit more relatable for your average like gym goal. That's why it's called 9 to 5 fitness, because it's like, your average 9 to 5 perhaps uni student, busy student, early corporate, like it's just your 9 to 5, but you can kind of create amazing results. You don't have to be like this big roided full-time bodybuilder.
Yeah, 100%. And so that's obviously one element to the business, and then there's obviously the personal brand that you're building at the moment, which is Anabolic Gabe, and obviously that's more personal to you. When did that really start to move?
Yeah, well, again, it was definitely on exchange. Like it was 2019. It was a pretty big year of progression for me. I went through. It was like my first proper girlfriend, I'd say. Like it ended pretty badly before exchange, and like I think any bloke who goes through or any like girl or boy who goes through their first breakup, like you just grow so much after that, and that was coupled with me like living in another country for 6 months. So I just had this hectic progression, and I think that's what gave me the confidence and just like I don't even know how to say it, but something changed within me. Like at the start of the year I was 68 kilos. I got back in November like 85 kilos without putting on like any fat, and all my mates were like, it's a new person who's come here. It was like the Captain America thing where you put the skinny kid in and he comes out as like Chris Evans. Not to like say I'm anything like that.
Mate,
but
no, you're looking good. So like you can say it.
It was like, that's kind of where, as I say, it's like a joke. I went from catabolic to anabolic that year. Catabolic is like the breaking down of cells. It's not good. But anabolic is the building up. So I went from catabolic Gabe to anabolic Gabe, both like mentally and physically, I feel. Mm-hmm. Anabolic was like a name that Louis would call me in the gym because I'd be like lifting, getting real pumped, and go like, oh, Anab, or something like that. Yeah. And it was like a nickname that caught on between mates. And from there, I just like changed my Instagram username to Anabolic Gabe. And I don't know, like that's kind of where the name came from. And from there, I've just like expanded on that content.
So from a personal branding perspective, what do you think it is that makes what you're doing so relatable? Because you talked about it. You've obviously identified a certain niche, right, or a certain demographic that you're relating to. And so what do you think about the content you create and your personal brand as a whole that people are actually saying, well, I can relate to this, and they're also really enjoying the content you're putting out? And more importantly, like, is that something that was deliberate from day one, or was it more something that you stumbled across and gone, oh, like you identified that as an opportunity and then started to really play on that as things went on?
Yeah, I suppose when I started making content, like both Louis and I were really self-conscious about what people thought, and like we wouldn't, at the start we promised ourselves we're not even going to take our shirts off, we're not going to put our faces in anything, and that got scrapped pretty quickly. But it definitely wasn't deliberate. It wasn't like strategized, like this is what I'm going to post, this is what I'm going to do. It was literally me like seeing videos online and like just providing my comments on it, just like completely unsolicited, but people were getting around it. Like a couple videos got like over 1 million views, and it just got traction from there. I suppose because I was just being myself, and I know it's really cliche to say like just be yourself, but I honestly think it's like so many people in the fitness industry try to be this mold of your classic Gymshark influencer and everything like that, and it's really boring. Whereas like I say like some controversial stuff. I remember like you may have seen like that avocado toast video. Like I got absolutely slated, like death threats for it, apparently because I was promoting eating disorders. But like that's just the way I know, like tracking my nutrition, and I'm pretty unapologetic with it. Like that's my perspective, and I'm never gonna like apologize for who I am. Like I'm a numbers guy. I like tracking everything. I'm analytical, so I'm not gonna apologize for that. And I think that can be like, you'll either hate me for that or you love me for it, and there's no in between. And if you hate me, whatever, but the people that do get around it, like they get something out of it, which like, I don't know, it's that, like that positive energy of people telling me like I've changed their lives or helped them lose weight, like that makes it all worth it to me. Yeah,
it's such an interesting, like, I look at things that work now, and it's like when everyone else is zigging, you got to zag. You know what I mean? Like it's like, I feel like that's something that, and it is that authentic thing, right? It's like you got to do what's authentic to you, because that's where you're going to find consistency. But I definitely think there's something to be said, like with how stereotypes are playing out at the moment, you know, and it's obviously one of the things that everybody struggles with, like no matter what industry, and like it's like, you get a corporate job, you have to act like a corporate, like you in the fitness industry, a lot of people expect you to be very rigid. You got to kind of fit this certain mold. Even personal trainers, like, that I was a PT, that was my first business, and it's one of those things where you do feel pressure to kind of stick within this mold and stick within the, how this group acts and so on, and I find it really interesting at the moment how, especially around content and, like we're talking about that relatability piece, how, there's certain people that, now they, the ones that are being authentic to themselves are actually starting to pick up traction.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I think there's a whole scene in America I follow pretty closely, and the people who are doing the best over there are the ones who speak their mind. They show everything on camera. They're very transparent. So I think I'm not trying to copy them, but I think it's just a good little signal to not hold back from showing who I am. Obviously, that comes within reason. I'm not don't do stupid shit basically, but yeah.
Yeah, and so I want to kind of touch on the content piece, because obviously that's a big part of what you do, and we were just talking, off air, you're obviously heading away and you've got a big trip coming up, and a lot of your planning is around content, but obviously that's first of all, how are you seeing content at the moment? If for somebody who's listening to this, and obviously content's a big part of any business, you know what I mean? Right now it's almost like you got to be creating content in some way, shape or form. How are you seeing it play out, in terms of what's working, and how to, for somebody listening, how do they start to think about potentially what they can do to, and how they can add this layer to their business?
I suppose I'm no expert in it. I'm still searching for the answers myself. I'd love to be getting millions of views every single video I post, and I hope one day I can figure that out. But I have had some level of success with it. I suppose starting something from scratch and creating a bit of a following and videos that do kind of well. I suppose it really is just about being yourself. We started the 9 to 5 videos just us in the backyard working out, and Louis would do this low voice, really slow voiceover, and a couple of them would get views and they get traction like that. So it is a really crucial part of any business, but it also is really saturated at the moment. I think everyone's realised now you got to be doing content. So, and the overall market of people who are consuming content, they've only got so much bandwidth, and there's only so much algorithm space to push your videos out there. So I suppose you kind of do have to be a bit unique, perhaps a little bit controversial, speak your mind, have a point of difference. It's very abstract, I'd say. There's no set rule book, but there are certainly little things you can do to help you get there. For instance, with TikTok, if you're posting a 3-minute disengaging video, the algorithm's going to detect it's kind of rubbish content because people aren't going to be watching for 3 minutes. You're better off doing 15 seconds or something like that. So that there are little tips for each platform. Again, I'm no expert with it. I'm trying to figure it out at the moment, and engage people who are specialists in this, and engage different friends who are doing quite well in it, and just figuring it out.
Yeah. So that, I think that's a good point. Because I know that's something that, even just with what we're doing, actually consuming content is really important, that I found, because I think obviously it's almost like writer's block, but for content, I feel a lot of people struggle with, and even us at sometimes, it comes across us all, but I feel it's consuming content helps you kind of create these ideas, and understanding what works, what doesn't, what you like, what can you potentially add to, say, this form of content that would make it more authentic to yourself. But so how do you think about it then? Are you just trying to capture the stuff that you're already doing? Are you actively going out and trying to create things? It is a mixture of both. How do you plan this stuff out?
Yeah, I think recently I've been having a bit of a battle within my own head, because I don't have it figured out, and sometimes my videos don't perform as well as I think they should be, or I put more effort into something and didn't perform as something I did in 10 seconds, right? So it's something I definitely am figuring out, but there's a balance between consuming the content, because I feel if I'm just on TikTok the whole day looking at different trends, you can get pretty closed-minded as well. Whereas if I'm off my phone, exploring, meditating, being mindful, being aware of my own state and things I'm doing, I can create more original ideas. But then again, you do have to pay attention to what's trending and what's doing well. So I don't think there's a perfect answer for that, but it's a mix of both.
Yeah, and so when you're actively going out and trying to film content and shoot content, are is it more just about being curious and being willing to play with ideas and actually go out and do it? You know, the practice of filming content and bringing things to life?
Yeah, I think so. Like YouTube is something I'm trying to really grow at the moment. I just had like a video do pretty well overnight, which was like a good breakthrough. And something I think I'm getting better at is like in front of the camera actually being lively. Like I'm getting more comfortable with it, like smiling, showing my teeth, showing a bit of energy, like talking to the camera. Like I'm talking to someone even though there's nobody there. And I think people really like that personality, and particularly in Australia for like vlogging / fitness content, I think it's completely lacking. So I'm trying to step up to that plate, and like I think I could be doing like whatever, like going to the gym, cooking meals, going on this podcast here, but it's about like how I narrate it and show people that it's exciting. Because if I'm just monotone and not providing any value, like people will be like, I don't really care about this bloke. Whereas if I'm exciting and people relate to that personality, then I think, like I've noticed it, you can have a YouTube video that is 25 minutes long, completely like unproduced, like obviously trimmed and cut and everything. But if people like your personality, they're going to engage with it so much. Whereas you could have something that's completely overproduced, but if the energy isn't there, like no one's going to... So that's something I've been playing around with, like with my editors and stuff. We've done like the overproduced stuff, but I've been like kind of flat on camera and I'm not even really feeling it, and the video won't do that well. Whereas like I upload something that's 20 minutes long and it's literally me having a conversation with my editor and just taking the piss out of what I do, like it performs a whole lot better and people like that personality. So there's like a few different things, but yeah.
Look, and like, you know, there's no formula here. There's not like it's going to be different for everybody. And I even think it's more like, you mentioned it before, like I guess like finding what is actually authentic to you is about trialing things and going out and doing things and finding, you know, what kind of content do you actually, you know, you talked about it being the energy. Where do you feel comfortable talking? You know, like for me, this is a place where I feel really comfortable at talking and creating content, because it's like, it's very natural. You know, I'm still going to go actively try do other forms of content and try to find another place where I can get that energy. But I think it's more just like, you know, like anything, it's just putting yourself out there, you know, trying to create the habit, trying to get really active with it, and over time, if you stick to it long enough, you might be able to pick up a few patterns here or there.
That's the thing I'm noticing. It's like in Australia, it's like content is weird. If you have a camera out in the street and you're talking to it, people are gonna like stare at you thinking like, is this guy got a problem or something? Like, is he all good? Whereas in America, like it'd be, or UK, it'd be completely normal.
West Hollywood, man, it's every third person.
Literally. So I reckon like Australia's 20 years behind. So it's something I'm trying to, not saying I'm like changing the game. I haven't done anything yet, but hopefully pioneer this along with a few of my friends, and kind of normalise it and bring this content to Australia.
I found that really interesting when you said that though. Like that was something that I took notice of, was like, you're actually thinking, and I feel like this is something that I see in a lot of the people I talk to on the couch that, you know, are successful founders and you know, building something great, is they can identify the opportunity. And you said before, like you think that fitness vlogging in Australia is kind of mediocre at the moment, or it's not at the level of say other you know, countries and so on. And I feel like that's something that is can be a big lesson for people, is like actually spotting what the opportunity is from a macro standpoint. You know, that's definitely something that I've noticed, you know, that for people that, because like market dynamics will always trump individuality, you know, in a way. Like, you know, you can, like there will always be individual brilliance, but you can have like a poor product in a growing market, and like a mediocre product in a great product in a dying market, and this one will actually perform better than the other.
Yeah, that's, you know, very true.
So it's like, I think the idea of identifying the opportunity, like, and you know, it can maybe attest to you know, how you're looking at it as well. Is that, do you agree?
Like 100%. I think it's to give you a personal example of like something I've noticed with my business. Our audience is so Australia dominant. Like it is like 92% Australia, something absolutely ridiculous. Now that's good and bad, because obviously when you hit international waters, that's when your overall following number blows up, like the millions. We've only got like 100K, something like that. Insta like 26K, something like that, which I'm still extremely proud of, but I know like it can be bigger. But the thing you've got to understand is the Australian market is so much smaller than UK, US.
Tiny.
It is tiny. But that also comes with benefits because we are probably arguably the most relatable fitness influencers. I cringe at that word, but to the Australian market. Now that means for the overall pie for the Australian market, they're all buying our products, using our codes. They relate to us the most. Whereas in America, you've got hundreds upon hundreds of successful influencers. So the pie is a lot bigger, but they're getting tiny slices. And so, like, and not that this is a whole money-making scheme for me, but that's what we've noticed. Like, we may only have 25K on Insta, but the conversions we make for other brands are scary. Like, we're outperforming people with millions of followers. Like, for our supplements code, like 1 month we made them, like, a very personal information here, but like we made them like 100 grand in 1 month just from our code, which is like other influencers with like millions of followers don't get anywhere near that. Like, and that's because our fans are like so passionate and get behind what we do and just like support us to the absolute hills. And I love them for that. But that, like, that's just a good example of like those market dynamics. Like, Australia is a smaller market, but yeah, if you dominate that market, your results are going to outweigh those in like a bigger market.
Yeah, and it's like, always get famous in your hometown first, right? Like that's an easy way to create a successful business, but it does talk to like, I think the market dynamics thing is like, being able to see things from a macro perspective, because it can go both ways, right? Like we just talked about it then, and you were kind of saying like, bigger piece of a smaller pie is still really good. You know what I mean? And there's a benefit to that, but then, there's also a benefit to expanding that pie. And that's probably what you guys are starting to look at now with the America trip and stuff like that. So it's interesting to see. You've got a background in, is it economics?
Yeah.
Does that play into this a little bit? Like, do you feel like, this is, it's kind of helping you understand or maybe have that mindset to be able to spot the opportunities?
Yeah, I think it's hard to say because arguably I went to uni for 4 years and I'm not using my degrees. So if you're just like results oriented, you're like, oh, waste of time, duh. But I think like through school, I was always very mathematical, very analytical, like a real numbers person. And I think that education has made me who I am, whether I use those degrees or not. I was, again, very academic. Like, I was in school, biggest, like, loser. I would literally go in the study room at recess and lunchtime and, like, study just because I wanted to get the best ATAR possible. Didn't have a drink until 3 months after U12. Like, most boring bloke ever. Like, I kind of regret who I was, but also not because, like, it made me who I am today. So, like, what did I do in uni? I was in Monash, did a Bachelor of Economics, and a Bachelor of Commerce in like finance. So like very numbers, love the econometric stuff, all that. And I think that made my mind, like it was really hard to be honest. And it really pushed me, and I was rubbing shoulders with like people who were like really brought the best out of my mind as well. Then I got into like the Honours Economics program at Monash. That was the kind of same time that NTF was kicking off, and I really wanted to do both because it was kind of my dream to do honours there, but like it was so full on. I was like, I really can't balance all of this, so I had to, like, I've deferred it for 2 years in a row now. This is kind of the first time I'm breaking this news, but that is like my background, and so it's hard to attribute like my ability to identify opportunities and be successful in like e-commerce and stuff to that, because it's like I could have just completely dropped out of uni and not done my degrees at all and perhaps gotten the same results, and I would have had an even better head start, but I don't regret it at all.
Yeah, it's one of those things, like the skills, like it's, that's what I think uni's really good at. Like I think we're moving away from a world where uni's about going and getting a degree and then using that degree to get a job. I think it's more like I did like a 1 year or half a year of a marketing. I'm the like, you can't tell me what to do. Like I just like, if you tell me I have to learn this thing, I'm going to hate learning it, but I love learning if I want to learn it. And that's what I've noticed. So I dropped out, right? Dropped out of uni, but I think I look at people who went to uni and I'm like, I never really developed the skills of like, have to get a project in on time. So like, that's the stuff that I have to work really hard on personally. Like I'm an ideas man. Business ideas, identifying strategy, really good. Getting these things done on time and these kind of things, those kind of skills. That's the things I have to work hard on. But I feel like with uni, it's like, I feel like that's kind of where it comes into play these days, is like you build these skills and you get this knowledge, and it will almost be a lens in which you make decisions in the future.
Yep.
So I think, maybe that might come into it a little bit, but I'm interested to kind of dive into like the business side of things then. So I feel I don't know about you, right? But when I look at business, I always try to think of like it's not like a philosophy, but it's like I try to identify when things work. Have you ever heard of the flywheel? Jim Collins?
No.
So it's like, it's about identifying what's working for us, removing friction, and then repeating that process over and over again to get like a compounded result, right? So I always look at like what's working here, how can we repeat this? I'd love to hear more about like how you see your business, not just business in general, but how you see your business. And is it like, okay, we need to create more attention here, convert that attention into paying customers? We're doing that through e-commerce. We think that's the biggest opportunity. Like, how do you see it, like when you look at it, and what are you trying to repeat? What are the things you're trying to recreate?
I'd say the thing that has worked well for us is just like the amount of free information we put out there, and like just like genuinely trying to positively impact people with no return at all. Like genuinely just free information. Like, this is what helps. And I think that is something that has worked really well for us, because like people didn't even realize we were a business, or probably still don't realize we're a business at this point. They think we're just like giving tips out there. And I think maybe that's something we even fell off with, because we got like mildly popular and perhaps even got a bit complacent with it. So I think that's something that's worked well for us and need to bring back more of. But obviously it's hard to always be creative and always have high output and things like that. So there are little lulls there. So that is something I think works really well. I remember even just, it was kind of reaffirmed. I was a classic, just like entrepreneur listening to Gary Vee. I'm not like a huge Gary Vee fan, but I think some things that he says is like absolute gold. And like one of the things he really sticks by is like giving like tons of free information out there. And so I think that's one of the things that, like, don't try to flog a product down someone's throat because like they're not going to buy it. But if you actually build a bit of rapport with them and a good relationship, and you're trying to genuinely help them out without being, like genuinely like your heart is trying to help them out, then like that'll translate pretty well. And that like you can see the results of like the conversion we have on our website with our email marketing, with anything, is crazy. And I think that is a lot because of that relationship we've built.
Yeah, it's it's almost like you make your free stuff better than their best stuff type thing. Like the idea around giving your best information away for free, because I think of it like this anyway. Like, we don't make decisions on brands because they're the best brand. We make decisions on brands because they're the least disastrous. So like, I use the analogy of a podcast the other day. Like, I only listen to one podcast a week right now just because I don't have the time. Yeah. So like, the way I choose that podcast is not by what's going to be the best option here or the best outcome. It's more like, okay, so I've got 1 hour, and if I listen to a brand new one that I've never listened before, that could be classed as failure, or I might not like it, and all of a sudden I've wasted that hour, and that's my 1 hour a week I get to listen to. So I'm going to keep coming back to the one that's going to give me the result that I'm looking for. So I often think of it like, if you can, and this is like comes back to your point around free information, it's almost like the more free information you give away and the more relatability and the relationship that you build, people are going to choose to buy your product, because when they go to make a decision, they're going to go, what's the least disastrous here? Well, I have the best relationship with this brand, so I'm going to buy their products. Definitely. You know what I mean? Yep. That's usually how I like to think of it, and I think that talks to like why content is so prominent now, because it's really just relationship building without having the ability to meet someone. Yeah, definitely.
So I think like that's something that's worked really hard for us. But again, like I feel like we're so far off from anywhere we want to be. So I'm still trying to figure out what works well and iron out what doesn't.
Yeah, 100%. So what and so obviously that's the content piece. Like, there's obviously another piece to what you guys do, which is product and business. Like, how do you guys think about that?
Yeah, so everything's done like through an e-commerce platform, which is cool. Like, there's no physical presence. It's literally like our team is all online. which is kind of beautiful. It's like this new age thing, and we've been so productive in creating all these sales and like really trying to build somewhat of an empire with it. Do you have like any specific questions about that, or?
Oh, it's more so. I mean, it's more from like a structure perspective, I guess. Like, do you? So you obviously host it through an e-commerce website, but more from like a needs perspective. Like, how do you think about what products you create and the, because like you would obviously have a few different products. Like, how do you think about, say, you've got an audience here, that's the content piece, and you're trying to create that relationship.
Yeah.
But how do you decide on like what products you're going to create and give to them?
Yeah, so like to start off with, like back when we had no idea, and we still got no idea. But the first product we ever released was socks, right?
Oh, really?
Yeah, these socks I'm wearing right here. So they were, because me and Louis just like training barefoot, and we're like, we want to create some socks that like almost like compression, and it was kind of our vision, and we bought like 200 socks, and only really friends and family bought it. I remember being like, dude, how are we going to sell these socks? How are we going to move this stock? And like we've sold out of so many socks that many times now, which is awesome. But at the start we were like, dude, like we've just overbought here. So I don't think a whole lot of thought went into that one, but like once everything started snowballing, getting a following, we're like, all right, we want to like drop some gym programs, because most kids when they go in the gym, they don't like actually follow anything. They just make up their workouts when they're going. Whereas if you give them like a scientifically optimized structure and they're just beginning, they're going to make so much progress. So I remember like the summer of 2020/21, it was like a common occurrence for kids to be in the gym, bumping into like a guy there and like, oh, you're in the same program as me. Like they were selling like hotcakes. It was unreal. It was like just based off of the stuff that Louis, like worked for Louis and I through our transformation, and kids were like absolutely loving it, getting so much out of it. And then they were like, all right, but like, Gab, we need you to show us like what to eat. So then I created like these meal plans, which was basically like an anabolic recipe book, and showing kids how to cook like your classic like barbecue chicken and rice, just like real simple stuff. But for me, I was always like very independent in the kitchen, and I loved experimenting there. It's my creative space. But like some people are overwhelmed by the kitchen, so I just like broke down the recipes in there, like things that I eat, like for example, if you're trying to put on weight, like making use of like healthy fats and things with like a egg, bacon, cheese, like muscle bagel, I called it, or something like that. Just like little recipes like that, protein pancakes. It's just like puts everything in one really nice. And I remember those meal plans, like I actually burnt myself out making them, because like there was so much demand for it, and I kept pushing it back because I was like, I need to make it like perfect. And like I remember I was like so burnt out after that, but like there was so much almost like constipated demand for it. Like the first day of sales for that was just insane, and like that that is so obvious, the signals there for that demand. Then it was like the merch. I feel like there's no kind of cool gym brands in Australia for like merch and apparel and stuff like that, so that's something we're trying to fulfill there, and we see like this need. So like in Australia, rather in America, there's all these sponsored athletes for like Young LA now, not so much Gymshark, but like all these brands. But in Australia, like I haven't even had like a good brand approach me for an apparel sponsorship. So I'm like, stuff it. Like I'm going to create my own thing here. I'm going to sponsor these like 17-year-old kids and put them on, give them an opportunity. So that's like something I see as an opportunity here. And then in the future, just like different products and opportunities and demands we can fulfill with our own products, I think will kind of snowball once you build that initial track record.
Yeah. So what I'm getting from that is it's more like, you have like the constants in your business, right? Which is like content, creating attention, building that relationship with the audience. And then it's more just about figuring out what products you think will be a great fit for ththese people to buy. Yeah,
exactly. Like even just like more of like a passion project. One I've seen lately is I use like a wellness diary, just because like I'm into like meditation and journaling, and like I get so many questions about like, what diary do you use? And it's actually, I'm like, dude, I could like make my own little wellness. It's nothing new, but people, because they relate to me and my brand, like I could just do like some wellness diaries about what I think is important to track in there. So like that, even that's just like a little, that's not going to make you bank, for instance, but like it's something cool you can provide to people.
It's so interesting. Like I think, looking back like 10 to say, probably 10 years ago, it was very product first. It was like, there's a need for this. then we build the product, and then we try to build the brand second to the product.
Yep.
Whereas now it's almost like brand building comes first, and then the products come second, and the products are just like, I mean, it's a much more efficient way, right? It's like, have the audience there, ask them what they want or what they need, and listen to them, and then create the products and sell them to them.
Yep.
So interesting. It's definitely a content first world, and building that relationship and audience first. So how do you guys, how's the business set up then? Like, what does your day-to-day look like? What's what's your role in the business? How do they how do you kind of, look at or how's it set up, if that makes sense?
Yeah, well, like ideally I'd like to give you an answer like I do X, Y, Z. This is what I do. I get up every morning at 5 a.m. and I do blah, blah, blah. The reality is I woke up at 8:30 a.m. today, had an absolutely shocking sleep, and every day is different, to be honest. My personality, I think a lot of people think from the outside, is very regimented, which it is to some degree, but I think I'm somewhere in this spectrum of completely disorganized to extremely regimented, probably 75% there. It's I like to free roam, be a bit laissez, and just work a lot on emotion as well. In saying that though, I do have my set role in the business of kind of the overall strategy and innovation and ideas for the content and things like that, whereas Louis is a lot more operational in helping with the order fulfillment, and he's really good at making the podcast shorts, for instance. But he's also very creative in that he's such a talented podcast host, so much better than I am. He could do his own monologue podcast if he wanted to.
Yeah.
So it's we really complement each other's personalities in that. Even less business structure, even it is kind of business structure. I can kind of portray this character of almost the dickhead, a bit cocky, and Louis the other personality, bringing me down a notch. He'll say something and just, but this and that, mate. That's kind of our personality contrast on the podcast, which is what people really like. So we've really divided, not even intentionally, just figured out what we're good at. I'll run, obviously because of the uni stuff, all of the accounting stuff, all of the the finances, just analyze all of that. And Louis will have his things that he's really good at. Another thing I'm quite bad at is I want to do everything myself, but I figured out that just takes up so much of my bandwidth.
Yeah.
So, and it's that small business mindset where you just want to save as much money as possible. So you avoid paying people. But now what I'm figuring out is no, I actually need to pay people because that frees up all these tasks from me, and it's less of a burden, so I can spend that time being creative. And it's something I'm still trying to do and figure out where to invest in the team and whatnot. But I think that'll be really key for the business structure.
Yeah, so that's something that you're obviously going through now, is it? You guys are starting to expand, and it's always the tough one, right? Knowing when to, you've almost got to go. It's the old age dilemma of going from a technician to then having to manage people, and it's such a different kettle of fish. Is that something you guys are going through at the moment?
Yeah, and even the managing thing is so it's tiring in a good way, but it takes a lot of energy because I want it done this certain way, but I don't want to be too controlling. I want to give people their creative space as well, which is why I like managing people, but giving this is your own domain, mate. You make your own decisions. If you need anything, come back to me. But it's good because not there are all these kids that follow me that want to work, literally kids that are studying law at Monash, absolute jets, 99 ATAR, and they're can I work for you for free? And I'm yeah, we'll see if you're any good. Give you a little trial, and then we'll pay you after that. So it's well, you can, not that I'm trying to exploit cheap labor or anything like that, but there are some really good resources out there that don't cost a whole lot. My editor, he's in year 12. He lives in Sydney or something, and I'm paying him $20-25 an hour to edit the video, and he does an amazing job because he's just a jet on the computer jet with all these programs, and it's you don't have to pay some university graduate a full-time salary. It can be on a subcontractor basis. So I think that's quite effective for our business. And just for me, I need to figure out where are the areas in our business that I can delegate and bring people in, give people opportunities.
Yeah, I was going to ask that. So obviously you're going through that process now, but I'd love to hear from, it's good to hear things from people that are going through it in that time. You know what I mean? I feel when we look back in retrospect, we can add I guess, a different perspective to it. But going through it now, like, what are some of the things that you guys what are some of those first things that you guys are looking to outsource straight away but someone else might be able to, that might be going through the same thing, might be able to kind of take some lessons from?
One of the best ones, so there are like kids that message us with like so much hustle, just repeatedly message, because like I don't really read my DMs, but like they'll contact on multiple platforms. And like I remember in the early days, this guy called Angus, he's now a very good mate of mine, but he was really hustling with the email marketing, e-commerce side of things. And I was like, I don't really care, mate. Like, just like brushed over the messages, but he kept hustling. I was like, you know what, I'll jump on a call with this guy. And I just like liked something about his message. Like I liked, like some people's messages are way too pushy. I'm just like, no, like you kind of get what I mean.
Yeah, 100%.
But something about it I liked, and I just got on with him so well. He was also like same wavelength. He was at like University of Queensland doing like accounting or something. So he was a bright bloke, and he essentially built our email list from like 800 to like 15,000. And it's just a whole nother revenue stream, and it's his domain. I don't need to tell him what to do. He's just so creative and so passionate and so driven. Charges like a very reasonable amount, and we've expanded this together. And so that's like getting people early to buy into the brand and create something for themselves. Like, so for instance, that is like upon starting it, like I didn't even realize that is like a really dominant avenue of businesses.
Business, 100%, yeah.
If anyone has any other ones that I'm just don't even know about, then I'm all ears, because that was something I didn't, and it's been really, really good for us.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it does talk to like getting the right people on the bus, right? Like people that are actually invested in the brand. It's a blessing. I don't know if you've had someone that you've hired who hasn't been invested in the brand, but I know I have, and it's one of those things. There's such a discrepancy between someone who's invested in your brand and then somebody who's just kind of like lounging around kind of thing. They like, one's taking from the business, the other one's like putting absolutely everything in. And if you get more of these people, like, man, it's so powerful.
I remember there was a really good opportunity we had. So I did exchange in Malaysia. And so I made a lot of Malaysian mates. Almost got like a bit of respect from the locals around there, because I was just like the token white guy in the country. Like I'd be like at parties and be like the only white, which I loved. I love just like diverse cultures and just broadening my perspective and everything like that. Anyway, so that kind of got me like a bit of respect over there. And there was, because it was a Monash campus there as well, and they actually hit me up because I knew I had a startup, and they're like, oh, do you want to be involved in this like internship program where like kids from Malaysia, or student, I keep saying kids, but they're students, probably like 22 years old or something. They're not kids. And they're like, they work for free for you alongside like some top level consultant who's like their team leader at like KPMG or something like that. And they'll work on projects for you. And I remember like we did a few semesters of that, and we had like kids doing like biomechanical engineer, like such bright units working for us in this internship program that just like transformed the back end of our business. And like I didn't pay a cent for that, but it was just like lucky falling into that opportunity, because it was, and they literally got top level jobs after, because that was the only experience I had. Yeah. So it was so crazy. I didn't even like expect to have that, but that was like so valuable for us.
That is an amazing opportunity. Like, how is that a thing?
It was called iCube. Shout out to iCube. It's like a Malaysian thing, and I don't know, it was just that they were basically all tech consultants for us, and did an amazing job.
Amazing. That is like a dream.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Awesome, mate. So we're going to dive into quickfire now.
Yep.
So again, I have to preface this because like sometimes like I'll be like, oh, we're doing quickfire, and then you get like 6-word answers, and I'm like, no, it's not that. So, say what you want to say, go as long as you want to go. One piece of advice you would give yourself starting your business again?
I would have started a lot earlier, and if I could be in the mindset now of just like not caring what anyone thinks and start posting content a whole lot earlier and figuring out what works and what doesn't, that'd be absolutely fantastic.
Why start earlier? Because I feel like I understand why, but I feel like it's such a good point.
It's something, I don't know if it's a reasonable fear, but I almost have fear that I'm running out of time. Like I'm 23 now, and I look at these people in America who are 21 who have arguably achieved a lot more than I have, and I'm like, sometimes I feel bad that I'm not doing enough, And like I kind of wish I started when I was like 16, for instance. But it's so foreign in Australia to be like a 16-year-old kind of influencer in fitness, and whereas in America it's normal. So I wish I started earlier, but maybe like the timing wouldn't have been right then. So I probably just would have been a bit more ballsy earlier.
Yeah, I feel like, I mean, you can fall into that trap, right? Like the looking at others and being like, oh, I haven't done enough, or, this person's younger than me. They're doing so much more than me. But I think you made a good point at the end. It's like the time is just now. Like that's always the time. That's the only time you're ever going to have is right now. You're never going to have the time in the future. You're never going to get the past again. The time is always now. And I think that's the lesson is like, if you're thinking about starting it, you should probably just start it. You know what I mean? Like for anyone out there, if you want to start a business or you've been thinking about the idea, just go and do it.
Yep.
Like don't wait. There's no perfect time. It doesn't exist. Like it's just start the thing, learn from your mistakes, keep going, be resilient in times when it is a little bit tough and maybe it's not going that well. And if you stick it out, you're going to have some success.
Yep.
100%. So what advice would you give someone who is starting a business right now?
So I suppose it's somewhat contrasting from what you just said, and that is like you need to do, if you're going to do it, you need to do it wholeheartedly. Because for example, it's quite a common one, but you see all these people start like a apparel brand or something, and it goes nowhere because it's hard to make sales. It's hard to actually stand out. So like you need to do it properly. Like I see all these people start podcasts and they've bought all the equipment and they do 3 episodes and give up. And I'm not trying to like shit on those people, but like do it properly. Like for me, I had this mindset, not even like purposely like it's going to work, but like I just wouldn't have been able to sleep at night if it didn't work kind of thing. So I was willing to find any way to make it work. And I'm still like that. Like we're nowhere near where we want to be. I'd say just do it wholeheartedly. If you're having doubts about it already, then probably question if this is the correct domain for you to go into. But that, I don't know if that makes sense.
100%. I want you to, because you just said it, the right domain. Like I feel like that's a really important thing. Like, is it passion? Do you think that's what it is? Like, when you say the right domain, how does someone choose that right domain?
Yeah, I suppose for me, obviously I'm passionate about fitness and stuff, but I'm not always passionate about it. So I just post what I want to post. Like I guess I'm passionate about things that I want to do.
From a business perspective though, right? So is it like what I mean is like, because I feel like you got to love it. Like deep down, you got to love it. You got to want to be good at it. You said it. You got to have this drive. Like, this is going to work no matter what, because I'm going to keep working at it until I do. But I feel like you said it. Like a lot of people start an apparel company because they think it's easy, right? When in fact it's actually the opposite. It's one of the hardest businesses to get off the ground. But it's like, don't start something because it's easy. Start it because you have this real deep curiosity about it. Maybe like,
yeah.
What do you think?
Again, I don't think there's a rule book for it, but perhaps something you think you'd have a point of difference. You're particularly passionate. You just really enjoy. Again, like going back to that apparel one, they probably see these brands like a 2XU or Itch Pig or Push Pull, and they're like, oh, I can do that too. But they don't see like you only see like the end product. You don't see what goes behind that. You don't see, for us, for instance, spending thousands of dollars and wasting months upon months with rubbish samples and getting disheartened. Like you only see the end product. So maybe do some digging. Like you might be passionate about it, but also do some digging about what's required to be successful in that. And
yeah, it's a hard one, right? It's like, because it also, I think, comes down to the individual as well. Like that resilience factor, that keep pushing, doing it because I just want to get better. You know what I mean? Like it's not necessarily because I'm directly passionate about this thing, but it's just in my nature type thing. So I think there's a mixture there. But what's the most important trait that you think a business owner / founder should have, and why?
I feel that's a good question. I need to think about that.
Take your time.
Because I feel like if I just talk about myself, then I'm just like pumping up my own tires. This is work because I'm this and that. But you see people that are like the complete opposite of me and had vast amounts of success more than I have. So, and I feel like you need like a diverse team of people that complement each other. But for instance, for me, like I'm just like so driven, like I will never give up on anything. Like I just won't quit. Like that kind of attitude of like, no, like I would not be able to look myself like in the mirror if this didn't work out. Like I would feel that much. Like if, for instance, when we bought our socks, like there was like fire under my ass to like, all right, let's sell these socks, for instance, like let's get it going. So I don't know what like driven / I don't know if there's a synonym for that, but that is a trait that has like worked well for me, like just never giving up. And that's with like anything in my life, with like my powerlifting, for instance, like I'm not giving up until I'm like one of the strongest people in the country, like my weight class. So I'd say that mindset has helped the business. But then there are like Louis is completely different. There are traits that he's had, and the business would not be where it is without his traits as well.
Yeah, of course. There's so like, you know, if you were to interview the S&P 500, the founders of all and the CEOs there could be 500 different traits. You know what I mean? Like that's just how it is. But I think it's good to, you know, I think the one beautiful thing about podcasting and even what we're doing here is like you get to see the difference between person to person and business to business, and maybe there's a way that might suit you. There's someone that you can relate to as well.
Yep.
Okay, so what do you think the biggest opportunity over the next 12 months is in business?
For my business particularly, or businesses in general?
I would say businesses in general. Like, is there, you know, like it's almost like the market dynamics thing. Like, are you seeing it could be a form of content, it could be a platform, it could be, you know, like e-commerce was massive over the last 10 years. Do you see that continuing? Like,
I suppose I should probably do some more thinking about this myself, because it might make my business more successful. But like we're seeing this might just be repeat information, but like you see all these cringy people popping up on your Instagram sponsored ads being like, oh, made this much from drop shipping, look at my Mercedes, look at my Richard Mille watch or whatever. But I reckon it already has shifted away from that, and there's value in actually creating a brand and that person, which is nothing new, and that might not even be time sensitive to the next 12 months, but that's what I feel like.
I agree. I agree with you. I think we're moving from a direct advertising, you know, and it's still going to exist, but I feel like we're going from like a direct advertising world to a brand building world where it's brand centric and it's all about creating long-term trust, not just getting the quick sale type thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And like probably some people would answer, oh, the opportunities in like NFTs or something to do with crypto, but I think probably the time span's like a bit longer for that, probably not 12 months. Like I see literally every brand trying to create their NFT thing, but I think there's I don't know if it's just me, but it seems like the hype's died down around it a little bit.
Oh yeah, we're in winter for sure.
Yeah,
it's I mean, look, it's an economy thing, right? Like it's the whole everything's in winter right now, but yeah, it's interesting. Like the crypto and NFT thing, I think that's a 10-year thing. You know, like that's the next kind of form of the internet. You know, like it's not going to happen overnight. You know, no matter what we thought or how hot it was getting a couple of months, you know, maybe 6 to 12 months ago. Yeah. But it's interesting. Like I definitely agree with what you just said though. Like I think we're definitely moving from like a direct advertising model to more of a brand building, content centric, building trust long term kind of thing. So
definitely
it'd be interesting to see what happens. Mate, I want to say a massive thank you for coming on the show. I think honestly, like, you know, you're humble in what you say. You know, you obviously are at the start of your journey, but you're also doing a lot right. And just want to say a massive thank you for sharing your insights and your journey with everybody. And I know there was a lot of lessons in there, then everybody would have got a lot out of it. So
I really appreciate it. I really enjoyed that, Carl. Thanks for that.
Yeah. Johnny boy, thanks for putting it together, my man. And for everyone else out there, our listeners, a big thanks for tuning in. Again, the support we're getting from you guys, we're just so grateful for it. It allows us to keep doing it and keep having amazing guests on. So a big thank you to you guys, and we'll see you next week.
Cool. Thank you.